Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be doing a review on Josh Winning's latest novel, Heads Will Roll. Now, I had never heard of Josh Winning before, but I did get this in my most recent Night Worms package. And I thought the premise was really kind of funny and interesting, so I totally wanted to read it, jumped up on my TBR list, and I'm going to read the premise for you guys in case you haven't heard of this. Willow's worst nightmare was being canceled, but the shadows in the woods of Camp Castaway might destroy more than her reputation. After sitcom star Willow tweets herself into infamy and stumbles blind drunk into a swimming pool, her agent ships her off to Camp Castaway. Nestled deep in upstate New York, Castaway is a summer camp for adults who are desperate to leave their mistakes behind. No real names, no phones, no way to call for help. Willow's fellow campers seem okay. Her own favorite actress is even here, making a s'more. And did that jaded writer Danny just wink at her? But the peaceful vibe is shattered when one of the campers vanishes and Willow finds a mutilated doll's head in her room with a threatening message rolled up inside. Terror grips the group. Campers begin to lose their heads, literally, and disturbing past deeds come to light. Is Willow about to get canceled all over again? This time, for good. So I will be doing a small spoiler section at the end of this book, just because a lot of my issues with this book come from some of the reveals at the end. But overall, I really loved and enjoyed, I would say, the first 2/3 of this book. I really enjoyed the concept of a Netflix celebrity basically getting canceled for one tweet, having her whole life upended, and then going to a camp where everybody is anonymous in who they are in real life, and yet sort of somehow everybody can kind of figure out who everyone is because for the most part they are so famous. I loved that. I loved the idea of an unplugged wellness camp that just to me seemed ridiculous. I love the idea of a wellness camp, but this one in particular, some of the stuff that they were doing, like the weird end of the world costume party, I thought was just so cheesy and bizarre. And the really dramatic smashing of technology that happens towards the beginning. I thought a lot of it was really kind of cringy, but in a way that worked really well for this book. This camp did not seem like the type of camp I would ever want to go to if I wanted to unplug. To me, it felt very almost making fun of the concept. And I'm not 100% sure if that's kind of what Josh was doing, making fun of the concept and the absurdity of celebrities being canceled with it, or if it was just he wanted the camp to be so absurd because these are such for the most part out of touch celebrities going through these experiences. So I thought it was really funny, and I was really invested in trying to figure out why everybody had been canceled, what they were there for, and of course there is this kind of murder mystery going on as well. And the murder mystery was kind of like Friday the 13th slasher-esque. There was some gore in this book. There's some quasi-body horror in this book. There is an imagery that's very Wicker Man-esque towards the end of the book that I thought was downright terrifying and very well done and very creepy and unsettling. And there are moments in this book that were just beacons of the book, of what potential this book had. And I really liked kind of the red herrings that Josh Winning was putting in this novel. I was really convinced that certain people were the bad guys multiple times, and I was pretty much wrong quite a lot, because to me I felt like the reveal really did kind of come out of nowhere. Another thing I really appreciated about this book was kind of the flipping in perspectives. I really liked how when we were going to have kind of a slasher moment, the perspective changed to the victim, which I thought was really cool. And I feel like we sometimes get that with slasher movies, where all of a sudden we are hyper-focused on one character for this big climactic scene with them. So I did really appreciate that it felt very cinematic in the way that the book was written for those moments. And like I said, the first 2/3 of this book, I thought it was fun. I thought it was campy, no pun intended, and very engaging. I thought Willow was an interesting character because she had a lot of depth for kind of being set up to be a final girl, but was still kind of a vapid celebrity. I felt like there was a lot of things that really worked with her as a character in this novel, where she does become kind of a sympathetic character, but she does have these moments where I'm also kind of just like, you know what, I don't know about that. I don't know about you. Like, you're kind of here for a reason. And I thought that was really interesting. And I loved Josh Winning's entire commentary on cancel culture. I thought it was done very, very, very well. I loved the kind of juxtaposition between a celebrity in their personal life and a celebrity in their like projected persona to the world. I loved that dichotomy. You see it very, very well and very strongly with Willow, but you see it with other characters too, especially Juniper, who I thought was an amazing, amazing character to have in this kind of scream queen that Willow idolizes, who just happens to be at the camp. I thought that was absolutely a fantastic addition. I liked the idea of having potential super fans. I loved the idea of the jaded blogger who doesn't ever understand the person behind the persona and wants to only expose them for what they post online and their own interpretation of it. I loved the kind of commentary on cancel culture. Unfortunately, I didn't love the final execution. I found the reveal to be extremely weak, and I found the reasonings for the motivations to also be extremely, extremely weak. Partially predictable, partially unpredictable, because again, it was a twist that kind of came out of left field, and I just didn't feel like it worked. And I found the motivations to just be littered with plot holes, and again, we get this moment of the whole story is don't assume you know a person based on this one slice of life that has been shared with you. And for this ending to work and be justified in what it's saying, we once again have characters assuming based on one brief slice of life that they've been exposed to how another person is. So that was definitely something that I found really troubling. It kind of undid a lot of what Josh Winning was doing with this story. Another thing, and this was just like a very, a couple minor things. The character names in this, I struggled with. I did really struggle with it. The number one being the fact that Kurt's sister is named Courtney. And with all of the references to characters looking like they are in Nirvana, it was very much a direct reference that wasn't so subtle to like Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love. However, a little kind of weird that Kurt and Courtney were siblings, because it's also like, is this an underlying commentary that maybe Kurt had feelings for his sister? Like, I don't know what that whole thing was, but I found that very strange. I found that very, very strange. And I just don't know if Josh Winning like thought he was kind of being like cheeky with like a subtle reference to something, and it's just like really not a subtle reference. But that's like just a super minor thing where I was like, I feel like there has to be a reason for these names because they're so blatantly famous as a pair. But then that reason never came. So I don't know what was up with that. I really didn't understand Willow's TV show. They kind of really like talk about the fact that it's a TV show where she's kind of like this like Emily in Paris style character, but she has like an imaginary friend who I guess fairly odd parents her way through the story, but that just never becomes relevant to anything. And so it was just really weird to me that like every now and then there was these like discussions of like imaginary friends, but it just like didn't serve any purpose whatsoever in the story, so I found that kind of weird. But again, this is where I'm being really nitpicky with just minor details, but I'm going to put the spoilers in now because these are the details that really made me not love this book. This book ended up being a 3-star read for me, and it's primarily because of these reveals. So the spoilers are going to start now, where I'm really going to dive into what made a book that I thought was really fun and campy kind of start to lose my interest. So if you don't want any more, this is where you should stop. But let's talk about our two big bads. And so first off, we have the priest, or the pastor. I think he was a pastor because he had kids, right? who is revealed to be the killer of Nancy, who obviously is our big folklore legend, who ends up, you find out, being a real character, which, interesting, really not sure how Buck was able to go from like the 1800s legend of it to it being something that happened 20 years ago. I feel like that's something that probably would have been more high profile, and like the year gaps of like it being like late 1800s versus literally 20 years ago, I found like that was like a jarring and hard thing to believe, that folklore legend would be that incorrect, where almost everything else seemed to be pretty on top of it. So her being a real character and her being the sister of Sadie and BB, and they make a comment that all of their names rhyme, and I'm like, Sadie, Nancy, and BB, those names do not rhyme. Just putting that out there. And I also was really confused on how old all of these characters were, because we find out that Nancy is about the same age as Chef Jeff, who was 37. But when I was reading about BB, up until the big reveal that Nancy's her older sister, BB kind of seems like she's in like her like late 40s, early 50s, even 60s maybe. But if I'm doing like the math correctly, like she was probably only 35, and I just did not get that about her at all. And maybe it's because they all have like silver white hair, but that was really hard for me to process. I definitely wanted more of Sadie to be explained as well, because all we know is that that mural that was painted in BB's house was done by one of her sisters, but we don't know which one. I guess I'm assuming it's Nancy, but the entire book paints Sadie as more of the artist, so there's that. And I just found like the doll head thing, it needed to be more expanded upon. Where are the doll heads coming from? Like, it explained why they were there, but where are they coming from? Why are they everywhere? Well, how is Sadie breaking into these places and literally filling an attic and drawers and like a treehouse with just like hundreds and hundreds of doll heads? Like, I need more explanation on that. Another thing too is the whole like BB calling the cops and the rangers when Buck and Kat went missing, and then like them just really never being present. If people were missing in the woods and a second person went missing after the first, cops would be swarming everywhere. There would be more of a police presence, and it wasn't. So I'm also like, was BB actually in on this? Because that whole plot line went absolutely nowhere. I was hoping we were going to find out that BB was, you know, in on this from the beginning and working with her father. And how nobody but Buck was able to ever just randomly stumble upon the treehouse and his weird, like, ramshackle shack, I don't understand. And who is Kurt communicating with? Because this pastor has been living out in the woods for God knows how long. Where did he get a cell phone? How did he have a cell phone, right? He had to have been working with somebody else who was orchestrating all of this. So was it BB? Was it Sadie? I don't know, but somebody is working with somebody, and we don't have who that actual person was. Who was communicating with Kurt? Because I just don't believe it was this pastor. Why wasn't the driver of Apollo's car killed in the same way as everybody else? I thought that was an interesting thing. Was he just a random innocent bystander, so he got to keep his head and be buried in the trunk, where everybody else was put into those like weird scarecrow mannequin effigies outside of his house? Like, everything about it started to really, really, really fall apart. I kind of predicted it was Kurt, just because he was so kind of weird and like he was the only one who never really had a backstory, but I never saw the preacher coming back. Like, to me, that was just really, really strange. Like, out of nowhere, we just introduced a character who was kind of a legend of folklore, and now he's this like raving lunatic but has perfect knowledge of how to use a cell phone. And then we have Kurt, who was completely manipulated within like the day that Willow arrives to start doing all of these things, which is, you know, convenient. Like, I feel like it should have been happening before she ever even got there, and they were like covering it up. But I guess not. I guess he just found the phone. Why did Sadie have her own phone that she was then able to give to Willow? Like, was that again just this like nod that maybe Sadie was involved, maybe BB was involved with her father, and we just don't know it? How was Kurt able to like break in and like smash all of the phones in all the various different places? Was the father doing that? Again, like, did he have access to technology? Like, I had so many questions, but my biggest moment was about Ty. because Kurt's motivation stemmed from the fact that it was up in the air on whether Ty or Kurt's sister Courtney was driving the car that basically hurt somebody, and then they both were potentially had their reputations ruined, both were able to get out of jail, and he's seeking revenge against Ty. We never find out who actually was driving the car. We just assume because Willow saw Ty doing the knife game with his fingers that he was probably the driver. She literally makes an assumption about him, barely knowing him. And then, like, that is it. Like, just deduces, oh, Kurt's right. This raving lunatic is right to draw that assumption. And I was just like, that completely ruins the whole point of this book. We are back to just judging people for the tiny, tiny, minute moment that we have spent with them, knowing nothing else about them. And it was never revealed if Ty was driving the car or not. And they kind of just are like, yeah, you know what, let's just go with that. No evidence, no proof. And yet for some reason, Willow finds it in her heart to, like, sort of find, like, forgiveness for Buck, because she's like, well, I don't know what type of place he was in when he assaulted that man, like, drunkenly back in Chicago. Like, I don't know, but, like, literally, like, zero empathy for Ty and trying to get to the bottom of the truth. Like, that was really, really weird to me. And then we have all of this stuff with Danny, which, like, they kind of, like, fall for each other over, like, the course of 24 hours, and then, like, when Willow realizes that Danny was that, like, blogger who basically ruined her whole reputation and caused her to almost die in that swimming pool, to lose her fiance, to lose her whole career, she's, like, mad for, like, a split second, and then, like, forgives her, like, a day later. I was like, what is going, like, what rationality are these people functioning on? Because if I was Danny, or if I was Willow and almost had a near-death experience because of how much hate I was getting for something that I tweeted that was misinterpreted, because I can't share who I really am in the public eye, and yes, she apologizes, and what she said wasn't great, and it was in very bad taste, but, like, the fact that it's just like, yeah, like, I can just forgive you for that, for, like, literally almost being the ruin of my entire life, literally, like, physically from this earth, I was like, no. And then we have Misty, who was, like, the super fan, and I just have a hard time believing that somebody, like, dedicates their entire life to a 3-season sitcom on Netflix that just got canceled out of nowhere, which is, like, a very Netflix thing to do. Like, she made it seem like Willow was, like, her whole world. And to me, it's like, okay, maybe if the show had been running since Willow was, like, 14 and now she's, like, 30, like one of those long-running sitcoms, but not like this is literally her only claim to fame. It was just bizarre, and it made it really, really hard and jumbled for me to, like, really understand everything, because I felt like Josh Winning was really, really poignant in what he was trying to say at the very beginning of the book, and then it just got lost in trying to make, like, a kind of shocking, twisty end result thriller. And I just kept poking holes in everything and just being like, okay. And I kind of was waiting for, like, a reveal of, like, oh, like, it was orchestrated that all of these people were here at the same time because they were all contributing to, I don't know, like, the thing with, like, Kurt and Courtney or whatnot. Like, I kept waiting for that to be the reveal, but it was all just like, nope, wrong time, wrong place, and because this is always where canceled celebrities go, after 5 years of this camp running, now we're going to do something about it. It just didn't make sense to me. And so it dropped down to a 3 stars because I just felt it was so unbelievable and unthought out. And it was just like, it just became like a slasher fest with, like, no real reasoning behind it. And a lot of the deaths were, like, happening in the dark and off screen by the end of it. And I was just like, I don't care. And, like, honestly, I felt like Juniper should have lived over Danny because Danny did kind of do a horrible thing and Juniper wasn't deserving of what happened to her. So I don't know. Not that anybody, like, deserves to die, but, like, Juniper really didn't. But I really wanted to like it because I thought it was really fun. And I really liked the little, like, I don't know, chapter dividers where you would get, like, a glimpse into, like, the tweets or, like, the Netflix call sheets or the blog posts. I thought it was really, really fun. And again, I enjoyed this writing style a lot. I just wish more thought and effort had been put into this book. But I'll probably read more from Josh Winning because, again, I thought it was fun. I just didn't love the final third of it. I thought it really, really fell apart. This would probably make a really, really funny movie in like the realm of like bodies, which I didn't love that movie by any means, but it kind of gives bodies very like pop culture relevant vibes. And I do appreciate the kind of weird direction that Josh Winning went with this, but it just didn't stick the landing for me, so 3 stars. Anyways, that is all that I have for you guys today. As always, I try to post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturdays, and if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and I will catch you on the next one. Mwah.